Hi, everybody. Okay, I am in probably 1981 here. Um, on the little street that we moved to, little road, I was telling you about the neighbors. Now, one guy that I did not mention because I think he moved in right after me, and his name was David. He was an attorney, Harvard graduate. His office was in La Jolla in the ritzy part of San Diego. And he was a Seventh day Adventist and he wanted to live out in the country. So he moved out there and he, um, he hired me to take care of his accounts receivable. So that was a good thing. I would go to the post office and the bank for him, and I would make phone calls for him, and that was good for my resume. I was also babysitting for the two little boys I mentioned before who moved into the trailer that we had left. And also at that time, I began to take a correspondence course. This was before online, and a correspondence course on writing, college course. It was a 2-year course, and they guaranteed that I would be a published author when I was done. I always liked writing and reading, and I used to make books when I was a little kid and draw pictures with little captions and make books and all. So I did this writing course, and I did become a published author where I wrote a short story, and it was called Lizzie's First Lie, and it was about Lauren when she told her first lie. And it was a true story, and that was published. It made the cover page of this periodical, and that was pretty cool. And later I had a poem published later, and I'm sure I could have done a lot more, but I didn't pursue it. Uh, so I was doing a little bit to help with the income, and Bob managed to graduate and got a good job at the hospital. So we were doing better, and but we decided, well, we got talked into Amway. Okay, so I don't remember who sponsored us. I don't know. It might have been my cousin, but maybe not, because I know he was in it. Anyway, um, we decided to try Amway. We got talked into it, and you have to put an investment out. So we had no money to invest, but we decided, because these Amway people, they all talk like they give you the Christian spiel. They're all about God and Jesus and all this stuff and the business at the same time, which I don't go for all that anymore. But we did fall for that. And so we actually, oh, I told you before that we got on the welfare and food stamps for 2 years while Bob was in the respiratory college, and then we went off of that, right? And that's the way it should be. It's good that there are government programs to help people when they're in need, but it should be temporary, hopefully. And I mean, in the normal situation, like with young people, with kids that are struggling, if they can help, if the government can help out for a couple years, that's a good investment in that family. And, it should not be long term, though, unless there's a really physical or mental disability involved. So we did that, had government assistance for 2 years, and then we were on our own again, and that was all good. We felt good about that. But Amway made it like, oh, you can do better than just get by. You could make tons of money. Uh, so we decided to go for it, and we put our all into it. Like they said, we went to one big convention and they talked us into all this. So we were getting babysitters, and we started going out trying to recruit people for Amway. and we put an investment into it, which was necessary to buy the samples and the literature. And really, you have to use some of the products to be able to honestly talk about them, right? And they were good products, but they were also expensive. And the dealer, especially at the bottom, only gets a little cut off of it. And so we went all in. We dove in and said we're going to give it our all, like they suggest, like they try to push you really into, if you get what you get out of it, you get out what you give into it. So we didn't pay our rent for 2 months because we didn't have any extra money. The only way we could buy what we needed to do this business was not to pay our rent. So 2 months we didn't pay our rent. And, from what everything they said to us, if you put your all into this, you're going to start getting, money back soon. Well, we figured that it should be happening, but 2 months we didn't make a penny, and we got the eviction notice. So, needless to say, we dropped that real quick. That was a bad idea. So then I want to tell you that our next door neighbor, talking about him for a minute, I told you also about rattlesnakes, okay? Well, around this time now, I'm talking about the twins are toddlers now, okay? And one day I'm walking out. I went out the back door with one of my babies, one of my little guys in my hand, come around the house, and underneath the stairs in front of the house there was this huge diamondback rattler, pink. I think they might call them red diamondback. Huge, coiled up underneath the steps. And here come me and Robbie coming around the corner, and I saw it right away. And as soon as that snake saw us, stood up and did what they do. They do this, they do this with their head, and their tail's rattling, and he's all curled up. Saw that snake, I froze, and then slowly backed up and went back into the house and called my next door neighbor, Frank, the old guy who's like 80 years old, former military officer, Navy captain, whatever. So he came over with his hoe, and by the time he got over, that snake had crawled out from underneath, and it was on the walkway where, like, headed towards where me and Robbie baby were had just approached. So anyway, Frank had his hoe, and he just whacked one time, cut that sucker's head off. And I'm not kidding. I know it's hard to believe, but honest God truth, that snake was as big as my arm. I mean, big around as my forearm. What's this called? This part of my arm here. It was that big around, and it was over 4 feet long, 4.5 feet, I think he measured. It was huge, and I still have the rattle. Saved that rattle. So that was my first rattlesnake close encounter. There was more. Okay, then we bought a rabbit. Really cute, lop ear, big long ears hanging down like a basset hound. And like a basset hound, he had big spots on him. He was white with brownish tan kind of couple spots on him, big brown loppy ears, really adorable. So we brought that rabbit home, and we got a cage, or built a cage, I don't remember, for it outdoors, and presented it to Lauren. Lauren was maybe 4 by now. and asked her what she wanted to name it. And Lauren says, like right off the top of her head, she says, Reginald von Palo Hollow. Where in the world she would come up with such a name, I have no idea, but we got a kick out of that and we said, all right. But we called it Reggie, and he was adorable and we loved Reggie. And um, sometimes we would let him hop around the yard. I remember one time Reggie was hopping around the yard and Robbie, okay, uh, was chasing him, and Robbie was about 3 at this time, right? So I'm jumping ahead a little just to tell you the rabbit story. So Robbie's chasing the rabbit around the yard, and he's going, come here, you son of a bitch. You son of a bitch, come here. And I know, I mean, we didn't curse. We didn't cuss like that. Didn't know where he got it from. And, I called him in. I said, why are you saying that to the rabbit? And where did you hear that? And anyway, he said he heard it from the movie, which we probably watched on one of those Saturday nights with the friends and all. Back to the Future. He said that's where he got it from. That was funny. And that was like the only time I ever heard them curse, ever, because they never did again after that. But, except as adults, I mean, talking about as kids. So, we made a cage, I say, we made a little fenced in area, like as big as is probably like 10 by 10 maybe, like a bedroom size, right? In the backyard, we fenced in with chicken wire for the kids to be able to play in there safely. We figured, we cut down the weeds. There was no grass. Nobody had lawns. It was all just weeds. It was just a matter of cutting down the weeds, right? And so, cleared out this area, put up the fence, and we figured we could let the kids play in there for short periods of time, and be safe. And put the rabbit in there, put the dog in there, all of them. They could all play together, and stick a couple toys or something in there. And that's what we did, right? Well, one night, when I was feeding them dinner, Barrett, it's so hard for me not to say their names. I'm sorry, boys. Bobby. Okay, I'm calling him Bobby. He was not, I mean, there was something wrong with him when he was in his high chair eating. They were toddlers. I mean, I think he might have been 16 months if I remember correctly. It was either 16 or 18 months he was at this time. Well, he didn't want to eat, and he was just like this in the high chair. There was something wrong. And I was trying to figure out what was wrong with him, asking him. And I noticed that his eye looked strange. His eye looked kind of swollen and red. I thought he had pink eye. His eye looked odd. So, like the next day, it probably was that I took him to the doctor. And the doctor thought he had pink eye and gave him the antibiotic ointment for his eye, and I did that, and I don't remember if he gave me some other antibiotics or anything. Maybe not, I'm not sure. But I remember doing the eye ointment, and it was not getting better. It got worse. The next day it was worse. It was more swollen, more red, and he was more miserable. I mean, like he was not his self. He was like miserable all day. And so the next day, so it was like 2 days later probably, took him back to the doctor. And doctor looked again, and he said that he had a serious infection going on. It was more than pink eye. He said that he had a serious infection. He said it was like, the infection had gone into his cheek and this whole area here. And so he said he wanted to admit him to the hospital because it could go into his brain and or affect his vision or something. He said that it could be serious. So he was admitted into the hospital downtown Atlanta, the Mercy Hospital over there, a Catholic hospital. And so at the hospital, he was in there for 4 days, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with his eye. And they had like teams of doctors coming in and looking at him. And at one point, I finally said to them, I said, because I kept seeing they kept on lifting up his eyelid, and I kept seeing this thing in there. And I thought it was like a string of mucus or something that was normal, because I kept seeing it and all these different doctors kept looking at him. So, I thought, well, it must be normal, right? Well, finally, like, I think it was the 4th day, I finally, and it was bad. The whole side of his face was all purple and all the infection was really bad. And of course, they had him on antibiotics. But I finally said to the doctors, what is that thing I keep seeing every time you lift up his eyelid? I keep seeing that thing in there. What is that? Is that supposed to be there, or is that part of the infection, or what? And they lifted it up again, and one of them, he had the glove on his hand, stuck his finger up there and pulled it out, and it was a damn sticker this big, like a whole inch, right up there in his eyelid. Damn doctors, 4 days. I mean, there had to be a dozen doctors come and look at him, and nobody pulled that damn sticker out of his eye that was causing all that infection. It was a foxtail sticker, which were all over that. That's what was all over. I mean, you couldn't go outside without getting them all over your socks, if you had socks on. So, I mean, we thought we had cleaned out that fenced-in area really good, but that's the only place I can imagine that he might have got it. Somehow he might have fallen down and somehow rubbed his eye or something and got that sticker in his eye. That's the only time that we ever left him alone, that could have happened. But young parents live and learn. They don't know everything, best as they try. So my poor baby, he had, and I had weaned him, and I felt so bad because he wanted to nurse again, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't start that up again. He was almost 1.5 years old, and he just wanted to nurse, and I would just hold him. It was so heartbreaking. But so they put the patch on his eye, and they said they thought that there would be no damage. The cornea was definitely scratched. They also said that that's one of the most painful things that can happen. And my poor baby was going through that for like a whole week with a sticker in his damn eye. So they also had to tape up his arms so he couldn't touch his eye. So they had both arms taped straight out, like splints. And when we were walking down the hall in the hospital, picture the baby with a big patch over his eye and both of his arms taped up like 2 splints, right? A few people just walking down the corridor in the hospital made mentions like as if he was abused, like, we were abusive parents. Like some people should not be allowed to be parents. They would make remarks like that, assuming that we beat up the poor kid. So don't judge. You never know. I mean, blame it on us, yeah. Because somehow when we weren't watching close enough. He got a sticker in his eye, but we did not beat him up. So that was one sad story. So my friends, who I mentioned before, like I say, if you can possibly keep up with these characters, if it was on Netflix, it'd be a lot easier to keep up with the characters. But Diane and Carl, okay, they were the ones, I'll refresh your memory, who he was in the Navy, and he was actually wanting to be a chaplain in the Navy. And they went to our church. They lived in the Navy housing in San Diego, and she had a little boy, a little bit younger than Lauren, and then she was pregnant again right after. When the twins were born, she was pregnant again, and then she had she had 4 in a row anyway, but 2 close to mine. And she was a very sweet, I loved her, very good, sweet friend. And she and her husband, they invited us to stay with them as needed when we had to go to the hospital, because they were close to the hospital and we were 40 miles away. And I mentioned to you when Robbie, anyway, he had a birth defect that we had to wait till he was 2.5 to have it surgically corrected. And he was also in the hospital 4 days. And we were able to stay with Diane and Carl during that time, those 4 days, so we could go back and forth to the hospital a lot. And that was very sweet, good friends. And one day when I was over there, anyway, Robbie's surgery turned out fine, and he was all back to normal after that, praise God. And by the way, we did have the Medi-Cal, the state of California insurance, like Medicaid, but March of Dimes, that charity, March of Dimes, is especially for birth defects, and they paid for most of his surgery. It was $8,000. Probably now it'd probably be $80,000, but because of that, I say March of Dimes is a good charity, because they did pay for my son's surgery, most of it. I think they paid like 80% or something. Praise God. So one day, when I was staying at their house, because I was going back and forth to the hospital, and one day Diane was out, probably just going to the store or something, and her husband was there, Carl, and he was talking on the phone outside. They had a sliding door and a patio, little tiny patio. It was apartments, government housing. But he's standing outside talking on the phone. Now, this was a phone with the cord that was attached to the wall. This is back before cell phones. And he's standing out there having a conversation, kind of, pacing back and forth, talking on the phone. And something came up for some reason. I wanted to get his attention for a minute. So I stepped out there, and there was a rattlesnake. There was a hose right there next to the sliding door, and the hose was just coiled up on the ground, and that rattlesnake, and this was a black diamondback, and it was coiled up right around that garden hose, just like it was his mama, coiled up around that garden hose. And anyway, I had stepped out there for some reason, wanted to just tell Carl something real quick, but saw that, and I was able to, and he saw it, and he slowly backed up, we both got back inside and shut that door, and He got off the phone. He called his neighbor next door and got a shovel and cut that snake up. So that was my second close encounter with the rattlesnake. And Diane and Carl, because they were in the Navy, they got some free passes to go to SeaWorld, and they brought us with them, so we got to go to SeaWorld for the first time. And by the way, we had been to the zoo several times. San Diego Zoo is the best zoo in the country, maybe in the world. I don't know. It's really good, great zoo. If you ever if you're ever down that way, definitely got to go to the zoo. And so I'm gonna end in a second here. My time is up. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Love you. God bless.